Sister Vimal Balachandran ji is an architect, an artist, and a member of Adyar Lodge, Chennai. Since 2010, she briefly volunteered at the TS Library and Bookshop. She has attended many School of Wisdom programs. She writes blogs and makes videos on her learning in theosophy. She used to take groups on walks in the Theosophical Society before pandemic from 2015 to 2019. She started a special needs support center for families with differently abled or special children. She is supported in her quest for morally upright life with her husband Balachandran ji and her children, daughter who is a lawyer and son who is an artist. I think Vimalji is an architect of life and she is also a good orator. Now I request Vimalji enrich us by your discourse. Vimalji.
Thank you so much, Sushma ji, for this beautiful introduction and for the lovely way you ended the introduction. I will quickly share my screen before I start. Uh, okay, this is I mean, there are a lot of seniors here, and I have taken up a topic which is quite hard for me to do. So I seek all the blessings of the seniors before I start. So I also thank the Pradeep ji for giving me this opportunity and this responsibility. So, as you all know, the voice of silence is what I am taking up is studies from the path of occultism by C.W. Leadbeater and Annie Besant. Though the initial sort of impulse to do this study was due to the School of Wisdom that I am still now attending. It's still going on. Today is the last class by Erica Georgiadis in online class that's going on. So I started also studying the path of occultism commentary on the voice of silence. So combining both the learnings of whatever I'm learning from both of them, I am presenting you today's talk. One second. So before I present the talk, I mean, all of you, let's all begin with where we are. I mean, what is our situation in life right now? So we all know that we are in the fourth chain in the Earth scheme, and we've already finished our evolution from the three previous chains and come to this chain as man. And as man, we have to evolve completely out of it to the next level of superhuman chain, the fifth chain. So we have to finish our evolution in this fourth chain. We have done 4.5 rounds. We have another 3.5 to go. So we are in the fourth round, rather. Sorry, we have finished 3.5 rounds, and we have another 3.5 to go. So we are midway in our whole journey. So in this, we know that we are in the fifth root race. There are 7 root races. Every globe has 7 root races, and there's going to be so many root races before we finish the seventh round. And why then are we doing all this study? Because we have a lot of time to progress. There is no need for us to hurry up and progress. We can progress with the rest of humanity. But the idea behind writing such a text as the voice of silence is that we become helpers in the people who are helping humanity to progress. We also become, in some small way, we also help people who are already helping humanity in the white brotherhood or down the line, their disciples, and who all are serving humanity, not working selfishly only for themselves. We also join that group of people who work selflessly. For that this book has been written, and for that we read this book. That is the purpose of this. Otherwise, slowly in evolution, by the end of the seventh round, we will all have become Buddhas. But by then we would have also caused a lot of damage. We would have also done a lot of harm to a lot of people and ourselves. To prevent that, we do such studies. So let us look at this. Okay. So yeah, so the Voice of Silence was written in the second minor cycle of 7 years. That is after 14 years of the Theosophical Society starting. It was published in the end of the second minor cycle in 1889. And when it was published, Blavatsky's health was not good. She used to live in London then, but she went on to live to take a break in the forests of Fontainebleau, which is near Paris. And this is the first image of the first publication that was done of the Voice of Silence. And then now about that, I mean, there is one thing that it says the first series. If you go back, you see it says the first series, which I always wonder whether there was a plan to write more, and she didn't have, but I don't know. Then let's look at what was the origin of the Voice of Silence. Now, the Voice of Silence is actually a translation of a book written by Arya Sangha called the Book of Golden Precepts. Now, the Arya Sangha was the person who started the Yogacara school of Buddhism. This was about 1,000 years after the Buddha. That's when Arya Sangha was alive, and in somewhere in the Himalayas, he started this. He was in a center, and then he built it properly. And he had this book where he had translated from some other books both the stanzas of dhyan and also these 90 treatises of his own. Okay, now what is there is that the stanzas of dhyan, you, as all of you know, is in pictorial form. We have read about it in Secret Doctrine, but in this HPB read that, but she later on saw it all, saw the stanzas of dhyan with the masters in Tibet when she went there. But here in this time when she was studying the Book of Golden Precepts, it had the stanzas of dhyan in translated form, in written form, not in pictorial form. See, the nature of the stanzas of dhyan are that they are in these palm leaf manuscripts. They are in this picture form. The picture becomes like in a 3D. When you're seeing it, it comes out like a 3D, and the translation of it comes in the language you understand. The interpretation comes in the language you understand. That is the stanzas of dhyan. It has a mystical quality. Whereas in the Golden Precepts, these 6 stanzas of dhyan have been actually written down. So from these 90 treatises of Arya Sanghas, in this Arya Sangha's own teachings are there. There are teachings which are connected to Buddhism, to Mahayana Buddhism, but there are teachings from other places. Some of his students have also written things in it. Out of that, she memorized 39, and out of the 39, only 3 are part of the Voice of Silence. So Arya Sangha is the earlier reincarnation of Master Dwalkul, whom we know as one of the pupils. Now, one of the things that the Voice of Silence, it's very intriguing. Just the first 2-3 pages itself. I mean, so much about it is intriguing. But first page itself says for the daily use of lanus. So in this, all of us, I mean, I always ask myself that firstly, am I a disciple? Secondly, who is a disciple? And if I'm not a disciple, then how do I become a disciple? And also, how can I make daily use of this book? That's also one question which comes to my mind. And another thing, when it says dedicated to the few, so can I be one of the few? So these sort of thoughts just come to my mind every time whenever I pass by. Anyway, someday I will be able to answer that. Here, let's go on to the book itself. The book is divided into 3 parts. So fragment 1 is the Voice of Silence. Fragment 2 is called the 2 portals, and fragment 3 is the 7 portals. You all know 2 parts, sorry. And fragment 3 is the 7 portals. Now, I'm only going to take up the first fragment, Voice of Silence, and that too only a few verses of that. I mean, it is simply impossible to do anything large in this case, but a little bit of that I'm going to take up. And my studies, as I said already, are based on the talks on the path of occultism by CWL and Annie Besant. So and what basically this book is all about, if overall you look at it, is the first fragment. It deals with the challenges and signs that a person who begins on the path to the higher self will deal with. What are the challenges? What are the signs? What are the hidden problems and good things that he will be dealing with when he begins on the path to union with his higher self? Now, again, in the early part of this book, there is this signature of in HVB's writing, where she writes HBB to HP Blavatsky. with no kind regards. Now, what does this mean? So, what it means is that HPB here is the higher self, and it's the higher self writing to HP Blavatsky, the lower self. And she says that you, the lower self, have given me a lot of problem. So, no kind regards. So, that's why it says like that. But here, of course, it means the opposite, that we who are in the lower self have to look for wisdom of the higher self, or look for what is that higher self in our thinking and in our whatever our daily life. So the first aim of the book is to dispel one's ignorance about the higher self and know that there is something like the higher self. Now, what Erica Jadis was sort of emphasizing in the School of Wisdom that we recently which I did recently, she emphasized the use of asceticism. Now, what is asceticism? Asceticism means exercises. It's the ancient Greek word, comes from an ancient Greek word which means exercises. What is exercise? Means certain sort of rules or regulations or systems that you follow on a daily basis. Like if you're an athlete, you will do a certain number of hours exercise every day to get a certain type of physical ability or stamina. Same way, asceticism is an exercise of the mind and emotions, a control of that. What are those ascetic practices that we need to follow in life? So that is which is recommended in the Voice of Silence. So let's start with this very famous quote, which all of us know: "The mind is the great slayer of the real. Let the disciples slay the slayer." What does this mean? So, as per the commentary of CWL, he says that the lower mind's got a very confused way of thinking, wherein we form these whirlpools of thought inside our mind, which get crystallized and they become very dirty, like cesspool, stagnant, like sewage water, you can say. They become like that inside our mind about various, especially if we are thinking negatively about things. Now, when we are trying to see that thing again, we are seeing through that whirlpool of or cesspool image of our mind. That's how we are not able to see what is real. So our own mind has slayed the real. That's how the mind is a slayer of what is the real. Now, how do we overcome this thing? How do we overcome this lower mind's way of forming these images or forming these formations inside our mind? And how can we sort of redo this whole thing, because it happens so easily and automatically to us from childhood? We do it. It is every time some old person tries to discipline us, then we'll develop an image about them, and that image will be quite negative. So what here we have to do is we have to overcome this habit of our mind to form quick images of things, very quick images of things, by understanding the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind, according to HBB, it has four components. One part of it is the Manasa Taijasa, which is the mind illumined by the Buddhi. The second is Manasa, just Manas, that is the higher abstract mind. The third component of the mind is Antakarna, or the rainbow bridge, which is connecting the higher mind and the lower mind. And fourth is the Kama Manasic mind, which is our desire mind. So if we understand these, there are four levels of our mind, and that we could use any one of them to think about a thing, then we get a little bit of a space between us and that lower mind. So let us take up one thing, like for example, what is the tool that we have to handle the lower mind? Here, one tool that has been suggested in the Voice of Silence is dharana, which is to bring back the serenity of the mind. Now, the lower mind's whirlpools can all be cleared if we have a calm and serene, concentrated thought on each matter of whatever topic in the lower mind. Thus, our prejudices are reduced and stagnant thoughts become open, flexible, and in motion again. That is, those fixed notions in our mind are then opened up, and then they are sorted out. All matters are brought in the light of Manasa Taijasa, or the higher mind. But how to do this? For everything we think of different ways to think of the same thing. Think of a way in which others may think of the same thing. In this way, we expand the quantity of thought we give to a topic. This process is called dharana. This concentration is not about just looking at one thing, staring at something, and not having any thought. It is about developing all the thoughts that you can have about that one thing. So, over a thing, you will, supposing you are looking at a human being who's disturbing you. Now, you can think, how will that the mother of that human being think about that person, or how will that spouse of that human being think about that person, how will children think, how does employees think, how the employer think. So then you look at all the perspectives. So then you will realize that there are some departments that human being is quite good at, which you don't know, but you may be able to imagine, oh, he may be quite good with that place, or maybe get with me there is some problem but somewhere else is. So you get this larger perspective, and that really helps you to develop a sort of a higher level of thought process. Is this the higher mind? I don't know, but at least it has expanded your lower mind for the time being. So this is the first ascetic practice, which is the practice of dharana, which is thinking more about things, about any one thing that is there. But then this alone is not enough. What we need is to understand that we have lots of defects in our thinking. Now, what CWL talks about is the five kleshas. I think we're all familiar with it. But anyway, I'll just go through it. That is avidya, which is an ignorance that it's the higher self that is acting through our personality. It's not I as a person really don't exist. It is the higher self which has taken this birth, and then it's going to go on to take another birth, and this is going on. So the ignorance of that is one of the reasons why we develop wrong thoughts inside our lower mind. Then asmita, which is that I am very important, I am more important than others going around. So that is very wrong. That is not the fact. Everybody is equal here. Then raga and dvesha, liking and disliking. Of course, we will like some things, we will dislike some things, but these very strong negative prejudices that we build in our mind are also causes for karma, are also causes for harm in this world, and also the truth is then not known to us. And finally, it's abhinivesha, or the fear of change, fear of old age. So in this case, not only do we use the tool of dharana, but we also use the tool of dhyana. Now, what is dhyana? Dhyana is a sort of passivity. You are quietening your mind. You are waiting for that intuition to come in, or some other thing to happen. You are not working with a. It's not a working mind. It's what they say, very commonly quoted by the president, especially, meditation is not what you think. So that is dhyana. That process of thinking is stopped. So here, for example, this small article cartoon is quite interesting. Often we think about what we are trying to impress other people. So we are thinking that, oh, what is the other person thinking about me? I am some king, I'm a winner, and all that. Instead of thinking about what other people are thinking of you, what you should actually think about is how can you help them, how can you guide them, what is their problem, is there anything you can do to help others. That's a much better way to think about others, rather than trying to think about what kind of impression you have made about them. Then another ascetic practice here is about remembrance. So here, the quotation from Voice of Silence: when to himself his form appears unreal, as do on waking all the forms he sees in dreams. Many times when we come out of a dream, we sometimes wonder whether we were really dreaming, because it seems so real at that time. But what the Voice of Silence is suggesting is that think of your physical form itself as a dream. If you remember that your physical form itself is not real, is some temporary thing, and what is real is inside you, which is going to live for eons in posterity, then you will have this you will be actually more towards the truth of the situation of life. So this is another one. Then here's: before the soul can see, the harmony within must be attained, and fleshly eyes be rendered to all illusion. So here, there's an ascetic practice of discrimination or segregating. Now, what happens to us when we die? Now, normally, what happens is that the higher mind will take out whatever good or whatever is of a permanent value in our lower mind and take it to the Devachan, and we have a final rest there. That is what is their understanding of death. Now, in this, Normally, why does the higher mind not do that when we are here alive? Why doesn't the higher mind come down and tell us, okay, here's your good thought, stick to it, hold on to it, don't forget this thought? The higher mind cannot deal with this lower mind. It finds a lower mind so confused that it's only after death that it can actually do that segregation of abstract good thoughts and unnecessary thoughts. So if in our living lives, while we are in our life, we do this process of segregation, and that's something which was called, I think, the golden rule by Socrates, where he said that every day at night, if you before sleeping you think about all that happened during the day, it helps your mind. So I would suggest, before sleeping, think of the best thoughts you had over the day and keep those good thoughts. So that would be one ascetic practice that I find interesting. And next, this quotation: in order to become knower of all self, thou hast first of self to be the knower. To reach the knowledge of that self, thou hast to give up self to non-self. So now, non-being. So most people think that reaching the divine is a single step process, but the Buddha himself laid out a series of steps. The Yoga Sutra has laid out qualifications. And here we are told that to know the Paramatma, the all self, we have to first know our higher self and then get to know that self, which is the summation of all wisdom, all our wisdom from the past lives we have, to make this lower quaternary invisible in our inner vision. Now, the thing is, in spirituality, most of the spiritual traditions, like they say that, okay, you have to have this vision, you have to have this thing. They don't tell you that there are many in between steps. Now, one of the in between steps in spirituality is to, for the lower mind to get to know the higher mind. When the lower mind gets to know the higher mind, then the next step is the higher mind gets to know the monad. Then after that, higher levels. So we have to pass these initial steps. There's no jumping from the lower mind to the monad. And the only way to know the higher mind is to stop obsessing with the things that the lower mind obsesses about. That is what is giving the self to the non-self. The non-self here is the higher mind. Another ascetic practice is a certain kind of determination. So it comes from this quotation: behold this host of souls, watch how they hover over the stormy sea of human life, and how exhausted, bleeding, broken winged, they drop one after another on the swelling waves. When you read this, that how much pain and suffering is there in human life. Like, I don't, the young people are over here, if there are any, may know the background of their grandparents, how they were when they were young, and then the last stages, how much pain ending, all the struggles of their life. And they see one entire lifespan. I, for example, know my mother from her childhood till the time she died, and I know the enormous suffering she had, how much hard work she did, everything. I know, like it's there in front of my eyes. And I think about that fact that, in although she was a spiritual woman, she never once talked about karma or reincarnation or taught me all that. I learned all this somehow. But this thinking that if we had this idea that our lives are, if we only chase desires, if we only chase desires, and every desire, you get married, you know how much happiness will be there, and for how long. You have children, you know how long you'll be happy. Everything, even if you're the most successful man, look at Elon Musk, for example. He's thinking about there is only happiness in going to Mars, for example. Seems so ridiculous. So if you think about, the thing is that desires will never give you. There is one beautiful quotation here also, which is, the more you give in to lust, the more you will suffer. It's not that you say, okay, let me enjoy this now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't like that. The more you give into it, the more it will grab you. So there is no solution or to desires. Desires are very ephemeral. They give you happiness for a short time, and then it's back to the grind. Now, unless one makes one daily determination that one will not be entranced by these types of things. The things that you are interested in is building a certain quality of mind, or at least accessing a certain quality of mind in yourself. So if you do that as a daily determination, it's definitely a better way to live. So these are, like, in a nutshell, all the topics that I talked about today, which is dharana, dhyana, remembering who we are, segregating or discriminating between useless and useful thoughts, sacrificing your lower self needs once you recognize the needs of the higher self. The needs of the higher self will be connected to your life situation. Now, what are the needs of a higher self? Why is it connected to your life situation? Is because the higher self has planned your life. It has planned everything: your parents, your education, the city where you, or the country you're born in, the people whom you're going to meet, at least the main people who are going to affect you. So all of that is coming to teach you. So there's it's very important that it is what you have to learn is in that situation only. So that's where the need of the higher self. For example, if you're a person who has lots of money and you have no desire to part with it, then the one thing that the higher self wants you to learn is how do you part with it. So it's something like that. So there are lots of such hints for you, that what are the things that your higher self is seeking, and you will get a strange sense of happiness when you do what the higher self is wanting you to do. So that's it. And then the daily determination to live a higher self, higher life. Okay, so now what is the voice of silence? What do we mean by the voice of silence? At each stage, one hears a voice from a part of oneself which is higher than one can presently be conscious in. So here CWL has beautifully explained this, and I'm just going to read from that part. For those working with the personality, the voice of the ego is the voice of the silence. But when one has dominated the personality entirely and has made it one with the ego, so that the ego may work perfectly through it, it is the voice of the Atma, the triple spirit on the nirvanic plane. When this is reached, there will still be a voice of the silence, that of the monad, on the plane above. When the man identifies the ego and the monad and attains adeptship, he will still find a voice of the silence coming down to him from above. But then it will be the voice, perhaps, of one of the ministers of the deity, one of the planetary logi, as they call him, as they are called. Perhaps for him, in turn, it will be the voice, perhaps for him, that is the planetary logi, perhaps for him, in turn, it will be the voice of the solar logos himself. And even for him, that is the solar logos, there is such a thing as that it may be the voice of a higher logos. But who can say? So now you get a kind of a picture of what the voice of silence is. It for every person it is something coming from a higher level. So there's no end to that higher level. So it will always keep coming. Another thing we need to understand is why the voice of silence. It could be so many other things. It could be an image, it could be so many colors, it could be something else. Why voice of silence? So that, to understand that, there is a significance to sound. It is the voice of silence, that is the sound or voice of silence, that creates all the planes of nature, starting with the atmic. Though this voice is no medium at that stage, when the creation is taking place, there is no medium, there's no matter, but it is starting with the with something which is called a voice. Okay. And it has the property of creativity, just like sound can create forms. Now in our level, for example, if you have here on your left, you can see this drawing, this picture, where you have this metal plate which is next to some musical instrument very close to it, and it is vibrating with the musical instrument when there is some sand being put on it. Now the sand actually creates a form. So sound here, it is the sound which is vibrated, that metal plate, which has created this form. So sound has got creative properties. That is what is inferred from this kind of an experiment. But at a much higher level, at the atmic level, when the matter is akasha or ether, the sense is of hearing. So each of these planes are connected to one sense or the other. The buddhic, for example, is connected to the matter of vayu, and its sense is touch. Manasic is tejas or fire, its sense is sight. Astral is apas or water, its sense is taste. And physical is prithvi, and it's the senses smell. So there is something in the voice which is of a creative order. That is why the voice of silence, it probably gives you an impetus to become better than you are. That is the creation of a better self, is what I understand it. So now we come to another quotation from the fragment one. And then thou canst repose between the wings of the great bird. A sweet is rest between the wings of that which is not born nor dies, but is the Om throughout eternal ages. Now, this is when you have reached that high level, whether it is the higher mind or at the monadic level, you get some rest. And here the sound of Om is visible throughout, so is heard throughout. And the Om here is it has got three syllables. Ah, that is Om. So the is coming from the base of the mouth, and then there's U, and the M is when the lips close. So these three syllables are sort of symbolic of the Trinity which is there, or triplicity which is there throughout everything, right from the highest to the lowest. So here you have the triplicity of Parabrahman, Devi Prakriti, Mula Prakriti, Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, will, wisdom, activity, Atma, Buddhi, Manasa, Tamas, Rajas, Sattva, Anand, Chit, and Sat. Now, the way this has been divided is by CWL, and I think even this requires a lot of explanation, which I myself need to understand. Another thing that is often talked about in fragment one, just give me 1 second. I will. So that is the three halls. The three halls start with ignorance, learning, and then wisdom. So ignorance is when we don't know any of these things. Learning is in the kama manasic mind, and which is often in error. And wisdom is of the higher manas or buddhi. Now, in this case, the knowledge may be incomplete of the higher manas, but whatever little it knows, it is error free. It's pure knowledge. Auntie, can you see? Stay. Before thou settest, now let's take up another one. Before thou settest thy foot upon the ladder's upper rung, the ladder of the mystic sounds, thou hast to hear the voice of thy inner God in seven manners. Now, all of us know the seven sounds that are mentioned in the fragment one, starting with the voice, the sound of the nightingale, then the cymbals, then veena, and so on. So these seven sounds, what do they mean? The seven sounds mentioned here refer to the seven subplanes of the Buddhic plane. And the idea is not that one has to hear these sounds, but that we need to bring the Buddhic intuitive knowledge of what is right and what is wrong in our daily life. So that is what this means. Now, let us here understand what is the meaning of this Buddhic intuitive knowledge. To understand that, well, let's look at what is conscience. Now, conscience does not tell us what to do, but commands us when we are inventing an excuse to do otherwise. See, let's take an example. There is a person working in let's say in accounts department, and he has made an error of addition, and now he has to go up to his boss and own up the mistake. Now one part of him is telling him that there is some way he can cover this up, and he might as well cover this up to change, to save his job. But there's another part of him which tells him to go and admit the mistake, and take the consequence of whatever that is. That thing which is telling you to go and do the right thing, go and tell honestly, is coming from the Atma. According to CWL, it's coming from the Atma The manas gives us inspiration. Like we may see some really very heroic human beings or hear heroic stories. That gives us inspiration for a lot of things in our life to do the right thing. The inspiration to do the right thing. The buddhi, on the other hand, tells us what is right and wrong. This is an intuitive something, very intuitive. Like I remember that when we were children, we used to have these kinds of conversations and we used to say, नहीं ये नहीं करना है, इससे पाप लगेगा. Now, how as children we knew that, but that is where the buddhi was still able to reach to our minds because our minds were still very simple. So buddhi does tell us what is right and wrong. Now, just to bring into perspective the amount of work we have to do, I thought I will bring these images from the Man Invisible and Visible of CWL, because this really shows us how much hard work we have to do in this birth, or every birth rather. Because just look at this, the causal body of an average man has got a lot of colors, and these colors, each color has certain meaning. For example, the yellow means intellect, pink means love, blue is devotion, green is empathy, violet is high spiritual ideals. All of these are present in the causal body of the average man, but disorganized. Whereas if you see the causal body of an arhat, just look at it, everything is a full sphere. The intellect is full. Now if we, when we are going through the Mahatma letters, we see many instances where they will say that, oh, is this new scientific thing happened? Yes, I have read about it. Yes, I have gone into the detail. That means how much of reading, how much of thinking, so how much of developing of intellect has to be done. It's not something that we can avoid. So the first color here is yellow, which is intellect here. See the full round, the full formation of that quality, and that organized formation. It is in perfect organization. It's not confused with devotion. It's not confused with empathy. That is separate. This is separate. That systematic formation of each nature is there in that causal body of the other. So now how do we ever anywhere go near such a thing? Now, but the thing in this is, again, we have this type of books to help us, and one of the quotations that can be useful in such a journey, such an enormous journey of developing that causal body, is that this quotation, that thou canst not travel on the path before thou hast become the path itself. So, on a routine basis, one has to function in the Buddhic outlook and response to life. Our growth is an unfoldment, it is not going anywhere. The ego now operates not the personality. The ego now operates, not the personality, in its threefold nature of will, wisdom, and activity. Wisdom or love, or activity or thought. Now, in this, what I'm trying to get at is that unless the personality is subdued and one is completely working with only these principles in our mind, then we start treading that path. That means there isn't any person treading that path anymore. There is just treading that path. That is what this particular verse is trying to encourage us to do. So finally, I'm just going to quickly go through. We know what the four major initiations are. So Stotapati, Sakatagamin, Anagamin, and then Arhat, and after that is the fifth initiation. And we are all, I mean, to a large extent, at least I am nowhere near any of this. So I have started looking at this thing for which Eric McGow, who is the ex-president of, I don't know whether he's still the president of the TS in England, where in a lecture on Masters on the Path, on the book, he talks about four minor initiations. And in this, he talks about how we are all at how a person can be compared, these stages of initiation can be compared to seasons. So for example, in the spring season, a person is like a bud. There are some hidden potentials which start to develop, and what is the nature of the mind of that person? He first starts seeking truth, he starts to inquire, he learns to concentrate. In his emotions, he is conflicted over accepted notions, traditions. He's conflicted over conditioning. He overcomes everyday fear and resists peer pressure. In his action, he likes campaigning, protesting. He likes to defend the weak. He likes doing charity. He is on a mission to change the world, stand out. In a way, you look at it, even Annie Besant's early life, probably all of us go through these stages in life. So the first stage is when you are wanting to, so you see in this world, there are a lot of people who are doing campaigning, protesting and all that. Maybe they're also in some stage of initiation without their knowing. So here is the first stage where it is the spring. Then the second one is summer, when this bud is becoming a flower. There the mind is now getting into serious learning. Its understanding improves, meditation improves, and he's stronger mentally. In emotions, he stops blaming others. He learns to help himself. So he doesn't blame others, he helps himself. In action, he finds joy in all work and he sets example to others. In autumn, the flower has now become a fruit. It it now learning has become such that he has become a teacher. His meditation gives him insight. It reaches contemplation and awareness, and at 1 minute. Control of his emotions or feelings, psychic energy starts awakening in his emotional self, and there is a profound sense of karma. He's very aware of why things are happening. In his action, he has opportunity and he is willing to take office. That is, he is willing to take responsibilities. He has become a reliable person. That is in the autumn stage. In the winter stage is a time of rest. His wisdom is getting assimilated, but it is also a time when he's tested very severely. In his emotions, he loves all, and in devotion, he's very devoted to spiritual ideals. He has a surrender of his personality. In action, he sees the divine purpose and sacrifices to the divine plan. So I will end here because I think there is a summary. Should I do this or should I end it now so that people can discuss? Pradeep ji?
You can do summary so that it will be more convenient for the people to.
Okay. Okay. So the summary is that, okay, all of us are trying, the aim is to go from the lower self to the higher self. So one of the things is dwell with calm on all that happens in your life and learn the significance of it to your soul, so that the higher self's purpose in this life is fulfilled. So that will require you to think a lot about what's happened in your life. Second is the higher mind, antakarna and buddhi are practically useless to us unless we learn to activate them with dharana. So practicing dharana is important. Then the main aim is to reach our higher self, and passivity is necessary for dhyan. Asceticism. Now you can select any of these, any other set of rules for yourself from this book or any other book, but some amount of asceticism, that is certain routines, is necessary for us to achieve something in this path of mystical union. Now the self becoming the path is when there is a longing for the self to be in union with the higher self. So it must be as much as you like wanting to take breath. Just as much as we need to take breath, that much longing should be there for the union with the higher self, which is something we have to develop. All of us don't have that type of thinking, so we need to develop it. We need to think about how can we develop something like this. Then to think clearly and dispassionately about everything without disliking or liking. Be careful when you know something which is like you have some superior knowledge. Use that to help others and not to just feel superior to others, which is another very important mistake which will happen along the way and happens till the end, which is pride. You have to be very careful not to be proud. Purity of mind means no ill will to anyone, only constructive and creative thought process. And then there is this beautiful quotation that you have to learn to find the child in yourself. I'll just read that. That is number 79 of fragment 1. The pupil must regain the child state he has lost ere the first sound can fall upon his ear. So that's it. I'll end. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everybody, for patiently listening. And I welcome everybody to share their thoughts. I'll just stop the sharing.
Thank you, Vimalji, for your excellent discourse with PowerPoint presentation. You have thrown light on the antiquity, historicity, and essence of this book. And you have also said what the virtues we are supposed to ponder over it and evils we should eliminate. In the beginning, you were saying you have learned the two words, uh, voice and silence, which I have understood with your discourse. Here, these two words are metaphoric word and contain inner meaning. A voice means voiceless voice, and sound means soundless sound. Soundless sound. This is metaphoric statement, and this is used for Brahman. And for human beings, here silence is an interior equilibrium, balance, harmony. When there is inner harmony, only then we can hear the soundless sound. When a state of consciousness is entered, in which all vibrations from the lower mind, you were talking about higher mind, so I have understood which all vibration from the lower mind are stilled and all attentions withdrawn from the outer world. Only they can hear the voice of silence, and it brings constant change in our life, which was the topic of your discourse. Thank you so much. Now the platform is open for discussion. Anybody can add or can ask question from Vimalji. Very valuable discourse you have presented to me.
Thank you.
Sir, Sindhji is there. Pradeep sir is there.
Thank you, Vimalji. I am extremely happy to listen you. You have understood so nicely the voice of the silence, and you explained it very, very understandable manner. Wonderful, wonderful explanation you have given. And also, Sushma ji, you have, whatever you have commented on it, that is also excellent. Excellent. I really appreciate both of you. Vimalji, you have done a lot of work. Actually, this is what we have given now is not of 1 hour or one. It has to be a school of wisdom like that. Whatever you have selected, all that is wonderful, wonderful. Very nice, Vimalji.
Thank you, sir.
And one thing, I may ask you, why it is called fragments?
Because it is from those 90 treatises of Arisanga. She has taken only 3. So it is a part of, but I don't know. It's very strange. She can call it anything else also. Sutra or something. Why she calls it fragment at all?
No, fragment 1, fragment 2, fragment 3, like this. These are, and titles are also different. Fragment 1 title is Voice of the Silence. Fragment 2 is the 2 paths. And fragment 3 is the 7 portals. Can you connect these 3?
No, that is, one is for the lower mind, then one is for the higher mind, and last is for the...
Yes. Like this, you think over this. Because she has divided it. It is not that they cannot be connected, but mystically you can connect. Otherwise, they are separate. See, when you are able to see the voice of the silence, then you will be able to see the 2 paths. Then here the question of Viveka comes. Which path you select? And that path which you select, then it has got again many 7 portals which you have to pass, and then you have to reach. So this may be the also a kind of explanation we can have. But you have spoken on the voice of the silence. I am really happy to listen from you. And whatever material you have given, slides, all those are much to contemplate. Lot of material you have given within a short period. I appreciate your way of explanation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Nothing to add.
Yes, very much. I am also very thankful to Vimalji, the way she presented, the way PowerPoint actually was created and also presented all these diagrams and the images. Really, it is a blessing for the Indian section that we are able to find such a good speaker who can present this PowerPoint very beautifully.
I'm such a great speaker, sir. I'm a very ordinary speaker.
No. Actually, it may require some not hours, minimum 2-3 days, constant thinking and also developing this PowerPoint presentation. Because for last 2 years, I am regularly doing it, but the way I marked it during South Indian Conference, there are some members they presented very beautifully. That is one part. And another part is this another part is the way this voice of silence while going through this fragment 2, fragment 3, as Sinde sir rightly pointed out, that fragment 2 will give an option whether to go to the longer journey or open path or the secret path. And the third fragment will give us the what, in how we will proceed in the secret path. All these things are there. Very beautiful book. Probably the more we will go deeply within the book, think over, ponder over, new meanings will come up each and every time we will go through. And we are unfortunate that we missed Professor C.A. Sinde, who conducted this book in Bali for 22 days. And such a voluminous of writings, etc., etc. Sir, you can develop that another kind of commentary of that book, that that session you have taken for 20 days or 25 days. All the material must have been with you. If you can develop it in a systematically, the way you presented there in writing, it will be also helpful. And that is the reason the title is The Voice of Silence. What is that? A constant reminder or inspiration? Vimalji mentioned it.
No, actually, I think that like the light of Asia, this voice of silence also, some of the passages, there is so much beauty in it, like
Yes.
just you can imagine the picture. There is a picture being painted in front of your eyes. So that like I feel like sometimes when I now this time I did it like this, that I talked about the commentary of CWL, but without that commentary itself, if one just tries to look at the beauty of that, then there is another type of thinking will come.
Yes. There are when former international vice president John Algeo, probably he had written, I don't exactly remember, 10 or 12 articles on this voice of silence. That was also another, I will try to collect it and make it in a book format. And now the Utkal Federation, Dr. Chittaran Satpathy, he is going to take 4 days study class on this voice of silence. Particularly subject is initiation in this book, Voice of Silence, I Lighten the Path, and also Kathopanishad. We're trying to make it online if it is possible, depending upon the net connection there as well as the atmosphere, what is there. Okay, any questions? Sushma ji, if we don't have any question, we can close the session.
Okay. Thank you, Vimal ji, and thank you all the participants. Asato ma sadgamay, tamso ma jyotirgamay, mrityor ma amritam gamay. From the unreal lead us to the real, from darkness lead us to light, from death lead us to immortality. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkhag bhavet. Shanti, shanti, shanti.
Vimalji,
Thank you. Yes, sir.
one
Thank
more
you.
thing I would like to suggest.
Yes.
This is like, as you have rightly said, it's a mystic book, actually. It is meant for few. And those who are really deeply thinking, he must begin with the duty. Duty is the first. And that duty is the dharma. No religion is higher than truth. H.P. Blavatsky used to have this motto. And when this duty reaches to the peak, that is called dharma bhava. Bhava, it is a rasa, it is a bhava, it is the essence. And then, when that essence comes with that duty, then that knowledge also comes, right knowledge comes to you. That is the second stage, jnana bhava. And this knowledge, true knowledge, when it comes, then actually you have to pass forward. So this dharma bhava, jnana bhava, like this, we have to increase. And once this jnana comes, then that final realization that comes. And all that final fourth stage is Aishwarya Bhava. So these are the four bhavas we are reaching. And what you have explained, really you are going step by step those initiations. I really appreciate the way you studied, the way you presented, and the way you have developed now. So I'm really congratulating wholeheartedly.
You have seen me 10, 15 years, 14 years ago. Now you see change. No, sir. Something has changed. You
Something.
saw me. You have seen me from the beginning.
I know you. I know you. I know you. And the way you presented and way you have understood it rightly, even the PPT which you have prepared, they are all were self-explanatory, in fact. So this be a child like means it is a wonder of a child. If you look at a child, don't think anything, just observe the child, how it laughs, how it looks to the flower, what kind of understanding is going on in the child. If you see that bhava is only in the child. Later on, we have lost it. So regain the child state. That is what the voice of the silence says. what we can do, we can at least observe the child silently, what it is doing, not disturbing it, how it looks, how it observes, how it cries for the food also. Real hunger, spontaneously crying, nothing else, just crying. So all these are the bhavas which need to be observed. I am giving this extra to you especially because you are developing in that sense. And this bhava is very important when you study the voice of the silence. And then you come to the last, that Aishwarya bhava, that gives you everything. You will be possessed by everything, and also you will be rewarded to bless others. This is what the voice of the silence, fragment by fragment, it reaches up to the end, actually. But we are doing this intellectually, emotionally. But at least we can observe the child. And then the reverence comes. The reverence must be a reverence of mystic. You also have some reverence for the voice of the silence, because that has come reverence mystically. You loved this voice of the silence. It has come mystically. So it is said, child's wonder and mystic's reverence, these are the greatest bhavas on which we have to meditate before we start many higher studies. And you have explained very nicely the higher mind and lower mind, and especially you have mentioned that touched me. Not regards to lower self, that HPB says. Really, we have to forget the lower self. Then only we can touch to the higher self. That is the peak point of self-realization. So, thank you very much. You have inspired me to talk more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like voice of the silence very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Now,
We're now going to close.
ji,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Pradeep ji.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.